I remember when I was homeless after getting evicted after being evicted with no explanation from a Tibetan landowner's house, Nima Doma in Shoreline. With no notice and having had my laptop stolen and mysteriously returned to where I had stored an object every day, every night. And opened every morning to attempt finding 3 jobs in Seattle to pay rent in a apartment closet shared by anarchists and Antifa and all of the activist protesters who are social, proud, and intelligent, with wisdom and diversity and ethnicity and dialect. And I got a call saying, my apartment's ready. And I visited and I saw what was now and said, thank you. I finally have a place to live. And hypothetically, no longer have to be homeless with drug addicts and bullies and dominant thug gangsters who use their fists to control their problems and make decisions about where to sell the chemicals and substances next to a graffitied wall with crack pipes smoking in the middle of the night, cigarette tobacco smell and smoke filling the air. In buildings with men, masculine, tribal, primitive, indigenous, masculine, machismo, tattooed from hand to the bottom of their toes, strapped with weight belts occasionally for lifting barbells. And then shortly after, when I was so confused and misdirected by my neighbors kicking on my door, hitting my wall, tapping on another wall, screaming in the hallway, yelling down the stairs and up the elevator, smoking cigarettes in the building, with a man outside with his dog, wearing red, and his friends selling drugs on the stairway with a graffiti that says, Rampage. Nobody ever removes. Nobody ever eliminates in a building with humans receiving health services. I remember when I wouldn't have a mind. I wouldn't recognize my mind faster than those who used violence and intimidation, calling me the devil and evil, saying I was going to knock the wall down the neighbor was hitting, and also I was going to commit suicide, they heard me say in my home, in a house where they rented a room in a building called Caroline W. Apartments. Police arrived, firemen arrived, to make sure I wasn't going to jump off the roof like I said I was, with the missing information of a parachute I had in a backpack I was going to engineer to not be so restricted and controlled and limited with the emotion of opening my window and then the shades and hearing the sounds of social laughter and sexual promiscuity, drug addicts yelling explicatives and racist terms. My neighbor was someone who's a man or someone who's gender neutral who says, "Hail Hitler." Mysteriously, everyone claims never happened. Similar to a secretive gift the engineer maintenance team calls a problem in a wall. Nobody ever fixed. Nobody ever solved. Nobody ever decided was important and necessary for a resident in a building in Seattle on Capitol Hill to not have to make almost 4,000 videos to explain your social housing, your subsidized living, involve what happens in genocides and ethnic cleansing. When your sweet man with his dog leave and a woman shows up who's Muslim and stands next to another man and another woman stands next to another gender neutral human and they say, "We need to get him a do not disturb sign for the hotel." Adding more confusion, I'm in a hotel now? A do not disturb sign? After acknowledging on a lease agreement, I'm renting a studio apartment. I'm not in a hospital, unfortunately for you as a social worker, psychologist, counselor, career-minded human. And no, I don't eat tacos and burritos. No, I don't talk about what color I am today with my mood. I read about differential equations and neuroscience to go to medical school, theoretically. With a bachelor's degree I earned in a university with a minor I achieved. With tenacity and grit. No longer beneficial and declared unnecessary in a building where they deliver your outdated food bank groceries to your doorstep. And they have office hours with the building manager in a glass room with a human and a hijab. For the racist white supremacists speaking on a video now about obvious parts of planet Earth, preventing a human from choosing economics instead of incarceration, treatment, medical services and health providing from a University of Washington Huskies, and all those Husky Cougar matchups with those Seahawks 12 uniforms for women's breasts to feel more voluptuous, their clothes to fit more elegantly and beautiful, and those men to have those prostitutes they have sex with whenever They need a break from their meth and their crack and their heroin and their fentanyl and their weed they give their buyers to have a nice, relaxing hallucination afterwards now. A hotel, a do not disturb sign, a neighbor who hits my wall, a neighbor who screams in the hall, a neighbor who smokes in the building, a neighbor who knocks on my door and says, "You're the devil, you're gonna die, I hate you, fuck you, you are disgusting." Paperwork submitted, phone calls sent, no response other than a mystery in a wall nobody can solve mathematically, logically. And instead, there's talk of culture and food and burritos and tacos and a glass office with a woman who sits in front of a skull and a cat and observes, watches and listens. And another human who has a surveillance camera, computer, video screen monitor. And lots of friends and lots of acquaintances and lots of assistants to help with their system and their processes in a building explained as an apartment leased residence for humans who receive Social Security. In other words, making sure those crazy people, those drug addicts, and their selves and egos don't burn down the building from their confusion, and don't assault and harass a cancer surviving mildly autistic human who has the bravery rather than the stupidity of a bully, nasty neighbor to say, there's no myth of slavery. There's no end to a Holocaust, genocide, ethnic cleansing. There's a theory and philosophy and language and letters and numbers of rooms where humans keep their experiments described in a book and manual and publication provided by doctors to stop those they declare unfit for survival in their new dead economical civilization called Seattle, Pacific Northwest, Capitol Hill and Portland, land of anger and hostility and a simulation on some tech worker's computer they're using remotely. And someone who's always listening, moving when I move, seeing when I speak to make sure I understand they are the law, they are Sharia, they are the Quran, and they are some science fiction book they give me on my doorstep. And their fluffy entrance with their camera on their door, mat, to make their feet feel a stimulation rewarded by a landlord manager, counselor who no longer keeps in contact with a client patient. They restrict and control and limit in a home they provide, in a house with a room they rent, in an apartment building, where behavior and emotion and social identity are taught as more essential than freedom. More beneficial